welcome to Live Parkinson's, Live an Exceptional Life. I'm your host, Chris Custenbotter, and I've been living an exceptional life with Parkinson's for the past 15 years. And the mission of this podcast is to help as many people as possible living with Parkinson's to lead a great quality of life. Today, we're exploring one of the most important topics for long-term well-being, and that's your cognitive health. Memory, focus, problem-solving, and mental flexibility shape how we navigate our daily lives. Now, here's the truth. Cognitive health is not fixed. It can be strengthened, protected, and trained. So today we'll break down the science behind cognitive reserve, we'll highlight some key clinical studies, but most importantly, give you practical, everyday strategies that you can use to help support your brain. So let's dive in. All right, so what is cognitive reserve? Cognitive reserve is your brain's ability to adapt, compensate, and stay functional even when challenged by aging or neurological change. Now, one of the foundational studies in this field comes from Yakov Stern at Columbia University, and it was titled Cognitive Reserve, and it was published in 2002. And Stern found that people with higher education, mentally stimulating hobbies, and active lifestyles showed better cognitive performance despite measurable brain changes. So in other words, their brains had built-in backup pathways that helped them stay sharp. Now, later research expanded this idea in a study that was also published by Stern in 2009 titled Cognitive Reserve in Aging and Dementia, demonstrated that cognitive reserve is built through lifelong learning, social engagement, physical activity, and mentally challenging tasks. So for people living with Parkinson's, this is incredibly hopeful. It means your brain can stay flexible and resilient, and you can actively build that resilience. All right, so what happens in cognition in Parkinson's? Well, cognitive changes in Parkinson's vary widely. Some people experience slowed thinking, difficulty multitasking, or challenges with attention. I personally sometimes have problems with all three of those. Others maintain strong cognitive abilities for decades. Now, there was a major longitudinal study that was titled Cognitive Impairment in Parkinson's Disease, a 20-year perspective, that was published in 2017. And it found that lifestyle factors, especially exercise, social engagement, and cognitive stimulation, significantly influence cognitive outcomes over time. And then in another study titled Executive Dysfunction in Parkinson's Disease that was published in 2013, showed that executive function, which is your planning, your organizing, your ability to switch between tasks, is often affected, but also highly responsive to targeted training. So this means that change is not a fixed destiny. It's a dynamic process that we can influence by our daily habits. Okay, so let's talk about the 5 big pillars of cognitive health. How can we help to improve our cognitive health? Number 1 is exercise, and that's the number 1 cognitive protector. Exercise is the most powerful tool we have for protecting the brain. You've heard me talk about it on multiple podcasts, how exercise is important not only for motor symptoms and non-motor symptoms, but it's also going to help our brain. Now, there was a clinical trial from the University of Pittsburgh titled Aerobic Exercise Improves Cognitive Function in Parkinson's Disease that was published in 2018. And this study found that participants who engaged in moderate aerobic exercise 3 times per week showed improved executive function, better attention, and slower cognitive decline. And then in another study, high-intensity exercise in neuroplasticity in Parkinson's disease that was published in 2012 showed that vigorous exercise increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which is a brain growth protein that supports memory and learning. Okay, these studies are nice, but how can we put these into action? So how can we use these in our daily lives? Well, number 1, you can do 150 minutes per week of moderate aerobic exercise. And that's a recommendation from the Parkinson's Foundation. And you might be saying, well, what's aerobic exercise? Well, some examples of aerobic exercise would be brisk walking, cycling, swimming, doing the elliptical, boxing, dancing. All those would be things that get your heart rate up and increase your breathing to help your cardiovascular system. Next is dual task training. And I try to do this every day as well. Dual task training would be doing an exercise while also doing a mental task at the same time. Like while you're walking, name some animals. You could do side steps from side to side while counting backwards by threes would be another example. Or toss a ball in the air and recite the months of the year forward and backwards. And then strength training. You want to try to do this 2 to 3 times per week. And no, you don't have to go to the gym and lift big, heavy dumbbells and do bench press and all those things. You can do simple things like chair squats. You can work with resistance bands, do some light dumbbells, body weight exercises. But you want to try to do things that are working on your strength and your muscular system. That's going to help with our posture and our core and our balance. And then this is something I do every day, and that's balance and cognitive drills. And one example would be standing on one foot while spelling words. And you might want to hold on to a counter or a wall while you're doing that. And then Tai Chi, where you're going through sequences of slow movements and focusing on your breathing, is another way to work on your balance as well. So the key takeaway here is that movement is going to literally rewire your brain. All right, number 2 is cognitive training. And that are challenges that build your cognitive reserve. Now, your brain grows through challenge, not comfort. I stated that earlier. There was a systematic review titled Cognitive Training in Parkinson's Disease, a systematic review published in 2015, and they found that cognitive training improved your working memory, your processing speed, how well you're able to process information, your attention, which I definitely need work on, and visuospatial skills. And there was another study, Computerized Cognitive Training in Parkinson's Disease, published in 2014, that showed that even 30 minutes a day of structured cognitive tasks led to measurable improvements. Okay, that's wonderful, but what are some ways that we can incorporate that into our daily lives? Well, we can start off with a daily cognitive warm-up. Maybe spend 10 to 15 minutes doing word puzzles, Sudoku, crossword puzzles. There's some apps out there for use like Brain HQ or Luminosity. I like to do some of the word games on my tablet. So there's a lot of different things that you can do just to challenge your brain. And then next up is learn something new. Maybe you're interested in learning a musical instrument. I've been learning to play guitar, so it not only helps me with my finger dexterity, but I also have to think when I'm strumming, but also when I'm reading music or chord sheets or whatever it happens to be, I'm challenging my mind. Maybe you want to learn piano, maybe you want to learn flute, trumpet, clarinet, if that's something that you're interested in. Another thing you can do is learn a new language. Maybe you're going on vacation and you want to learn Spanish, you want to learn Italian, you want to learn German or Polish, whatever it happens to be. Learning a new language is going to challenge your brain. And then you can also find a new hobby. Maybe you're interested in painting, you're interested in woodworking, cooking, drawing. All those types of things are going to challenge your brain. And then just for some simple micro challenges that you can do is when you brush your teeth, use your non-dominant hand. You can take a different route to the store. If you're used to going to the store the same way, take a different route. Or rearrange your kitchen cabinets just to challenge your mind. So you have to think, okay, where did I put the silverware? Or where did I put the pans that I need or the dishes? And then memory drills. Try recalling your grocery list without looking. Now, I've always had to, the last couple of years, I've had to write down my grocery list because if I have a list of 5 things, I'd get to the store and I remember 3 and forget 2. So I write them down. But now what I try to do is try to look at it and then be able to remember what those 5 things are when I'm at the grocery store. And I can use my list as a crutch if I need to. And then practice remembering names by repeating them aloud. And again, this is one of the problems I have when I meet people. I'm always interested in looking at their facial features and smiling and introducing myself. That their name goes in one ear and out the other, and then I have to ask somebody what was their name, and then if I repeat it several times, then I remember. So a lot of times by repeating the name or associating it with something else is going to help you remember names as well. So here's the key: challenging your mind is going to help build your reserve. Number 3, and this is an important one, is sleep. That's the brain's cleaning cycle. So sleep is when your brain's going to clear waste, it's going to consolidate your memories, and it's going to reset attention systems. So there was a study titled Sleep Disturbance and Cognitive Decline in Parkinson's Disease that was published in 2019, and it found that poor sleep quality strongly predicts cognitive decline. So if you're having trouble sleeping, that's not a good thing. You want to work with your healthcare professional to help you with getting better sleep. And then there was another study called The Role of Sleep in Memory Consolidation that was published in 2010 that showed that deep sleep strengthens memory pathways. Okay, so how can we help to sleep better? Well, one of the things you can do is have a consistent sleep schedule. So go to bed and wake up at the same time daily, whether that's every day or on vacation. So if you go to bed at 10 and you get up at 5 or 6, do that every day. Next is have a wind down routine. Maybe it's stretching before bed. Maybe you listen to soft music. I know sometimes when I can't sleep, I put the headphones in and I listen to soft music and it helps me sleep. Another thing is light reading. Try not to read stuff that's really intense or really challenging because that might get you excited and make sleep a little bit more difficult. Now, here's one I'm sure that we all struggle with, and that is limit screens 1 hour before bed. Now, what do I mean by screens? That would be your phone, your tablet, your computer, the TV, because the blue light, a lot of times it'll cause insomnia or have you waking up during the night. Next is improve your sleep environment. Now, most of us like to sleep in a cool room instead of when it's hot. So try to keep a cool room. Try to have dark curtains so that you don't always have a lot of light coming in that's going to wake you up. And then some people even use a white noise machine to help them sleep. And then if you have sleep disorders, whether it be REM sleep behavior disorder, insomnia, sleep apnea, all those are common in PD and they're treatable. So talk to your healthcare professional. All right, number 4 is nutrition, and that's feeding the brain. Now, your brain needs high quality fuel. There was a study called the Mind Diet Study, published in 2015, found that people who followed a Mediterranean style diet had up to a 53% slower cognitive decline. Now, if you're interested more on the Mind Diet, I've actually done a couple podcasts on the Mind Diet and the Mediterranean diet. And then there was another study, Dietary Patterns and Cognitive Function in Parkinson's Disease, that was published in 2022, found that diets rich in antioxidants and omega-3s were associated with better cognitive performance. And again, I've done a couple podcasts on antioxidants and omega-3s if you want to check those out for more information. Okay, so how can we incorporate that into our daily lives? Well, according to the Mind Diet, if you eat leafy greens daily, so that would be your spinach, kale, arugula, romaine, try to eat one of those at least daily. Next is add berries 3 to 4 times per week. Me, I eat berries every day. I love berries, whether it be blueberries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, elderberries, because they're high in antioxidants. So try to eat those if you can 3 to 4 times a week. Next is choose omega-3 rich foods. That would include your fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel. And then walnuts is also another good source, as well as flaxseed. And then you want to reduce inflammation. And the way to do that is to limit processed foods, which have a lot of sugar or are highly processed, and then fried foods and added sugars. A lot of times your sauces like barbecue sauce and some of the other sauces, ketchups and things like that out there have a lot of added sugars. And then hydration is very important. You want to aim for 6 to 8 cups of water per day because dehydration worsens your cognition. And then try to throw in some brain boosting snacks like almonds, dark chocolate that's 70% or greater cacao, and then carrot sticks with hummus would be another good example. So remember, food is brain medicine. And number 5, social connection, the cognitive lifeline. Social engagement is one of the strongest predictors of cognitive health. There was a landmark study titled Social Engagement and Cognitive Function in Older Adults that was published in 2000, and it found that socially active individuals had significantly lower rates of cognitive decline. And then there was another study titled Loneliness and Cognitive Decline, published in 2007, that showed that loneliness increased the risk of cognitive impairment by 50%. Now, you've heard me talk about this on other podcasts, but you want to prevent social isolation. So make sure that you stay engaged with friends, family, and your social groups. So how can we do that? Well, one of the things you can do if you have a Parkinson's class in your area, where maybe it's an exercise group or even if it's just a support group, try to get together with them weekly. Because if they do an exercise group, the movement plus the social interaction is really going to benefit your cognition. And then next, you can schedule regular social time. Maybe you meet a friend for coffee once a week or lunch, or you just pick up the phone and call your friend. Just like on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, phone a friend, because that's going to keep you connected and socially engaged. And then you can join community groups. Maybe you like to sing and you want to join a choir or get involved in a book club or just volunteer to help others. And that helps you stay engaged and you're helping someone else at the same time. And then, practice social micro engagement. Talk to your neighbor. My neighbor, Don, who's 86, and we sit out in the driveway in the evenings and we just talk about life and try to solve the world's problems. So that helps me and him stay engaged at the same time. Chat with the cashier. Say, how are you doing? How's things going? Because that helps it brightens their day, and then smile at someone in the grocery store. And then next is stay connected digitally. And that you can stay connected with your friends and your family that aren't located geographically near you with Zoom, FaceTime, or WhatsApp to help you stay in touch. Remember, connection is what's going to keep your brain alive. All right, so let's talk a little bit about mindset and stress management now. Chronic stress is going to shrink the hippocampus, and that's the memory center of your brain. There was a study titled Stress and the Brain, Mechanisms of Cognitive Decline that was published in 2009 that found that long-term stress accelerates cognitive aging. So, how can we reduce stress? Well, you can do some mindfulness practices. And there's apps out there like Calm or Headspace you can use. There's other free sources out there. But just practice noticing what's around you. Stay in the present moment. Practice mindfulness techniques. And then breathing exercises. You can do things like inhale for 4 seconds slowly through your nose and then exhale for 6 seconds out through your mouth. That's going to help reduce stress. The next is one of the things that I like to do, and that's gratitude journaling, where I write down 3 things that I'm grateful for. Every day I start out, what are the things that I'm grateful for? Because that's going to help set a positive mood for the day and just makes me appreciate the things that I have in life. The next is nature therapy. This is one of my favorites because this is something I like to do. I like to spend most of my time outdoors when I can, whether it's gardening or if I'm at my cabin. I like to go for walks in the woods. I like fly fishing, but I just like being out in nature and seeing all the different things that I can see, and it really helps to reduce stress. And then you can limit your stress triggers, like trying not to multitask where you're doing multiple things at one time, and simplify your routines. Don't overbook your schedule where you have to run around like crazy to try to get all these activities done. So break it down into simple steps. Okay, so how can we do this in our daily routine? Well, let me just give you some example. Here's an example of a daily routine that I use. And so in the morning, I start out with 10 minutes of stretching, and then I do some type of cognitive warm-up. So I'll do a crossword puzzle or a word game or something like that just to challenge my brain a little bit. And then I make sure that I hydrate early. And then right after that, I'll go to the gym because I like to go to the gym in the morning because that's when I have the most energy. And I usually do 30 to 45 minutes of some type of aerobic exercise. And then I throw in some dual task drills. So I might count backwards or spell words forward and backwards while I'm doing some type of, whether it's strength training or something like that. And then I try to attend, if I can, one of the group fitness classes because I like to stay engaged with other people. And then in the afternoon, maybe learn something new, whether it be a musical instrument or that's the time you spend learning a new language. One of the things I'm working on is learning how to code in Python. So that's something that's challenging my brain. And then you can practice memory drills. So maybe you do some memory games or something like that. And then eat a brain healthy snack, some walnuts, some carrots and hummus, those type of things. And then in the evening, I try to eat a Mediterranean style dinner where I include the green leafy vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats, whether it be avocados or olive oil or olives or things like that. And then when I'm done with dinner, I'll do some light reading and maybe do some screen time, but I usually do the screen time first and then the light reading. and then just try to relax right before bed and have a consistent bedtime. So the takeaway here is that consistency builds reserve. Okay, let's tie this all together. Cognitive health is not about perfection. It's about protection. It's about giving your brain the tools it needs to stay flexible, resilient, and strong. So the research is clear. Movement, challenge, connection, nutrition, and rest are powerful, accessible, and effective. You have the influence over your cognitive future. You have the ability to build that reserve, and you have a community right here that's here to support you. So I want to thank you for listening today. If this episode encouraged you, share it with someone who needs a cognitive boost. So until next time, stay healthy, stay strong, keep moving, keep learning, which is going to be a key piece, and keep living your best life with Parkinson's. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.